The city of Mysuru has a long tradition of celebrating Dasara festival with grandeur and pomp to mark the victory of good over evil. TiE Mysuru extends warm wishes to all the members on this auspicious Dasara. Happy Dasara to everyone. May all your troubles burst away like fireworks and all your happiness multiple 10 times. Seeking the blessings of Goddess Chamundeshwari, let's proceed with today's Fireside Chat with Mr. B.V. Jagadeesh, Managing Partner, KAAJ Ventures. Now, I request Mr. Sudanva Dhananjaya, President, TiE Mysuru Chapter, to welcome the August gathering.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನವರಾತ್ರಿಯ ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳು. ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ ದಸರಾ. It's a wonderful occasion to welcome Mr. B.V. Jagadeesh, Anuradha Jagadeesh. I should say it was a good fortune. We got a heads up from KAAJ in Bangalore that you were in town, sir, and Sanjeev called us and said, you know, he's going to be in town. Do you know that he's going to be in Mysore for 12 days? And why don't you guys do a TiE event? And then Mahesh Katale, our executive director, quickly followed through. And thanks, sir, for your patience. I know we've pestered you quite a lot during this time. We're really grateful that you've been able to make time and come for this event. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I have to welcome all the board members of TiE Chapter Mysuru, all the charter members, associate members, student members, institutional members of the TiE Mysuru chapter. We have a special guest amongst us, Madan Padaki, President of TiE Bangalore, and has an enviable job of conducting TGS 2024 as the chairperson. Wish you all the best for that, Mother. I welcome Mukund Prasad, who's going to moderate today's session. All the very best. Welcome all of you. Look forward to fireworks, as you said, and look forward to a meaningful interaction. Mysuru TiE chapter is young. We lost 2 years in the interim due to the first and second wave of COVID, even though the TiE chapter Mysuru was started before COVID. Post-COVID, we are again back to being active with regular programs, and we would also like to seek your advice and guidance on how we can do better. Thank you, and welcome you all for this evening. Have a great occasion. Thanks.
TiE is the world's largest non-profit organization promoting entrepreneurship with 15,000 members in 61 chapters across 14 countries. TiE's mission is to foster entrepreneurship globally through mentoring, networking, and education, dedicated to a virtuous cycle of wealth creation and giving it back to the community. TiE's focus is on generating and nurturing the next generation entrepreneurs. As Sir said, TiE Mysuru installed in 2019, and there are various impact created by TiE Mysuru chapter. 150 plus strong members network in Mysuru, successfully organized 4 TiEcons with more than 1,500 attendees, successfully hosted 5 TiE University Pitch Fest, 80 plus startups are being mentored by TiE Mysuru members, more than 12 lakh worth prize money provided to the startups, 2 editions of Women Pitch Fest hosted, and 16 women-led startups being mentored by TiE Mysuru members, 60 plus webinars and workshops conducted with more than 5,000 attendees, 4 institutional partnership to promote entrepreneurship and innovation, 2,000 plus entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs and startups reached through TiE Mysuru programs and its initiatives. A big round of applause to the entire committee working behind TiE Mysuru. Now, I take this opportunity to introduce the guest, Mr. B.V. Jagadeesh, for today's event. Mr. B.V. Jagadeesh is a successful serial entrepreneur, angel investor and philanthropist. He is a managing partner of KAAJ Ventures. He has successfully invested and guided companies like Nutanix IPO, Yodlee IPO, Arkin acquired by VMware, Elasticbox acquired by CenturyLink, NetMagic Solutions acquired by NTT, Osarnia Networks acquired by Dell, Ankina acquired by Juniper, to name a few. Before founding KAAJ, B.V. Jagadeesh served as a founding investor and CEO of Netscaler. Netscaler pioneered the concept of application delivery and was successfully sold to Citrix for $325 million US, and served as a group vice president and general manager for Citrix Application Networking Division. Prior to Netscaler, he co-founded and served as a CTO of Exodus Communications in 1993 that pioneered the concept of internet data centers. He was instrumental in successful IPO of Exodus in 1998. Currently, Jagadeesh is an active investor and serves on the board of several Silicon Valley startups. He is also an adjunct faculty at Levis School of Business. Jagadeesh is also very actively involved with several non-profits for the betterment of the world, such as UVCE Foundation, providing scholarship to deserving students, one school at a time that constructs school buildings for the underprivileged, Akshaya Patra, providing midday meals to 1.6 million children per every day. B.V. Jagadeesh is an active TiE charter member at TiE Silicon Valley. A hearty welcome to you, sir. I request you to be onto the dais. Now, I request Mr. Anil Kumar, Associate Member TiE Mysuru, to introduce Mr. Mukund Prasad, Charter Member TiE Mysuru, who will be moderating today's Fireside Chat.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to introduce a remarkable leader, Mr. Mukund Prasad, a man with many talents. With an impressive 18 years journey across various domains such as consulting, mergers and acquisitions, project management, and financial controlling, Mr. Prasad is a walking encyclopedia of knowledge. After earning his MBA from IIM Calcutta, he took a dive into the world of banking and financial services at PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting. From there, he leaped into his energetic days at Siemens. Today, he shines as a partner at IntelliCap. At IntelliCap, Mr. Mukund Prasad stands at the forefront of consulting and research practice by providing guidance to countless enterprises. His contribution at IntelliCap encompasses like guiding microfinance institutions in crafting strategic plans, analyzing the supply and demand of risk capital for MSMEs, conducting impact evaluation studies, overseeing IntelliCap's incubation service platform. So much complex business, right? I didn't understand actually when I was reading through his profile. So all he does is he makes complex things simple. That's it. So now, beyond his professional achievements, Mr. Prasad actively supports our community as a TiE charter member of Mysuru chapter, and dedicating his time and expertise to mentor and nurture the startups. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Mukund Prasad, an exceptional professional and guiding light in the world of business consulting.
I think many people have said if you cannot convince, confuse. So that's my journey till date. He obviously will be able to convince you about a lot of things. And I will attempt to my best to extract gems from him by asking hopefully relevant questions.
If not me, I'll make the audience to convince themselves.
Yeah, so that's the other thing which he's told me, that this is not a question answer session between me and him. It's about you. So we will be asking all of you to participate at appropriate moments. Please raise your hands, and you can sort of ask a question to Jagadeesh whenever you have an appropriate question. Good to go?
Yes.
So, I mean, what I mentioned to Jagadeesh is this is a collection of eclectic people who are students, people who are professionals, entrepreneurs, investors, family businesses, etc. And also philanthropists. I think Jagadeesh has worn all these hats in his life at various stages. So what we want to do is sort of go through each of these journeys in as and when is appropriate and learn from your insights there. So starting off, I mean, I think the pre-entrepreneur journey was as a professional. And how did that journey from a professional to an entrepreneur make it? We just discussed you were in Micronic Devices in Mumbai. How did you transform yourself from 31st of the month kind of person to someone who's actually giving salaries out on the 31st of the month?
Thank you. First of all, Navaratriya Shubhashayagalu. Welcome all of you. You know, as a young kid, I've always heard this song, Mysuru Dasara, Yashtondu Sundara. I'm sure most of you have heard of that. I've never had the chance to actually experience this Mysore Dasara, despite the fact that I'm a Karnataka boy, right? Last December, we happened to be here, and good friend of ours, Prasanna and Padma, who are here, they kind of introduced us to the incredible palace lighting, which happens on Sunday evenings. I was like blown away. Absolutely, I was blown away. And he said, you know, this is nothing. You should actually come during the Dasara festival and you should experience how the entire city is going to celebrate. I said, wow, explain to me what happens. So then he kind of ran through what exactly happens during these 10 days in Mysore. And after I went back, I talked to my wife, who, by the way, I want her to stand up because she's actually more a Mysore girl. This is Anuradha Jagadeesh. She studied in Mysore at NIE. And so she knows Mysore a lot more than I do. Although now I can claim I have a lot more friends in Mysore. In the last 1 week, I've met a lot more people. And so that's what enticed us to set aside this entire 10 days to come and participate in this Mysore Dasara and enjoy every festivities. And every day we are truly experiencing something different, something new. And I can tell you that what we are going to carry back here is going to remain with us for a very, very long time. So thank you once again for inviting us. And just to talk about my professional journey and the transition, I think that's actually one of the biggest question marks in many people's mind, right? Because everybody keeps saying, hey, let's start a business. Let's do something. So this is not uncommon. And a lot of times, the people that you bump into, they also say, hey, let's start something. Right. But actually, that's not the way it really works. So for me, while I was doing my master's in Bombay, I was very fortunate to get an internship at a very small startup company called Bombay Electronics. And the founder of this company is called Dr. H.J. Nain, and he had a PhD from Case Western Reserve University. So I watched him as an intern. First he took me as a summer intern, and he exposed me, I'm talking about 1979. He exposed me to work on microprocessors back in 1979. And because I think I did a good job, so he said, why don't you just continue even for the rest of the next year, during your academic year, you finish the classes, and then you can come and spend a couple of hours. So I continued for the remaining, 12 months or 14 months or so, which I ended up getting another job in a company called Micronic Devices in Siam. And that they used to represent, that was also a startup company, and they used to represent this Intel corporation. So I got tremendous exposure to startup environment and also into cutting edge technology. So that's what led to my getting the job. So around that time frame, right, that is when I thought, someday I'm going to start my own company. So this idea of starting my own company actually got triggered at the time when I was doing this internship with this Bombay Electronics, because I was so inspired. And so went to US in 1982, and it took about 10, 11 years for you to sort of like get financially stable. And I got married in 1985. So my wife came, and she was a big support to me as well. And all of that, right, I always kept telling her that, one day I'm going to start my own company, and I want to start my own company. So we tried a bunch of things. A couple of us came together. We tried one that didn't go anywhere. We tried another one. That also didn't go anywhere. I mean, we didn't lose money, but we didn't make any money. But the experience that we gained out of that was pretty substantial. So in 1993, I was working for this company called Novell. I don't know how many of you have heard of Novell, right? So Novell was one of the most high-flying companies at that time. So I got a job with Novell, and believe it or not, that was the first time in my entire career I actually worked for a very big company. Until then, every company that I worked for was always a startup company. So Novell was the first company, and there was a purpose as to why I joined Novell. Because until the Novell time, I always worked on the embedded system software. So I wanted to get exposure to personal computers, because I had never worked on personal computers. So I thought, let me join Novell, get some experience, because that will help me when I start my own company to have that complete knowledge. So Novell was actually a disaster experience for me, because Novell was headquartered in Utah, and my job was in San Jose, and all the decisions were made in Utah, Provo, and they have very hard set mind. And I was frustrated for almost like a year and a half or so. And then I bumped into this partner of mine who eventually the two of us started Exodus Communications, KB Chandrasekhar. And he had the skills of sales, and I had the technology and product skills, which is what I had always worked on. So we both decided that why don't we start this internet-related company. And we took a jump. And believe it or not, when we took the jump, I called up my father, and I said, I'm starting my own company. And he said, what is your salary going to be? I said, it's going to be a big zero. He said, are you sure? How are you going to manage? I said, I have saved enough money for the next 2 years so that I will not put the family on the streets. And I'm going to try this for 1 year with constant milestones of every 6 months, measure myself to see whether I'm a fit into the business. Because my father was a professor, my grandfather was a professor, so the whole family is full of teachers. And here is me, first guy in the family, trying to do some business. So my father's advice was, look, we are not a family of business people. We don't really understand numbers, right? That's not our forte. So be careful. Whatever you do, be very careful about it. So that was the click that happened. So it was the frustration at Novell and that excitement to start my own company. So everything just converged at the right time. So it's not like the idea that we had first is what eventually translated into this internet data center. So it became an evolution of many ideas that we had, and then eventually it became internet data center, and the market actually converged at the same time, where we had the right product and the market converged and it just took off. And in my experience, such a thing doesn't happen all the time.
I think lots of interesting points. Number one is that 1979 he started off. I was 3 years old. I think looking at him and looking at me, both of us seem to be of the same age right now. hats off to your fitness and the way you have maintained yourself. Number two, if there was TiE or equivalent business or ecosystem in India in 1979, I'm sure there would have been a Dell equivalent started by him in Mumbai, Bangalore. But yeah, I think at that time we had to actually move to
Bangalore had no jobs at all at that time.
PSU jobs.
Yeah.
All the HMTs and the BLs, BHELs types. So yeah, so I think that's the second learning. So again, that's a coincidence. I think for me also the most important thing which you mentioned, we all hear of Exodus. We all say Exodus was a success, but you failed 2 times. You actually learned from those failures. And the most important failure for you, in my mind, was working for a big company. It's not easy to work for a big company once you've tasted the freedom of a small company. And that probably actually drove you to start off your own and sort of forge your own
And
path.
in fact, even when Exodus became big, I just could not continue, even though it was my own company, right? Because we were almost like 4,000, 5,000 people. So what happens in a big company, in fact, this is the biggest advantage for a startup, is in big company, decision making is the slowest. Because if you want to make a decision, you have to invite at least 6 to 8 people to the meeting. And these are all key decision makers from different departments and all. And just to get them on a day on your calendar itself will take more than 30 to 45 days. Itself. And we all know in the first meeting, there is no way a decision is going to be made, right? At least you're going to have 3 to 6 such meetings. And imagine, that means it's going to take about 6 to 9 months for a decision to be made. And if I'm a startup company, I would have already finished my product by then.
Right. So, I think the key point for the people who are budding entrepreneurs from this is that it's going to take time. And when he sent me an email, I think there was one line there: resilience is more important than talent, than education. And I think that his journey is a proof of that. He was resilient enough to actually fail, learn, go into a big company, fail in the relative sense of the word, and then start off and make Exodus a big success. So in that context, is there anything that you would like to say to the entrepreneurs here about resilience itself?
Yeah, so this whole resilience, persistence, right, is what I talk about in my email. Because I strongly believe that if you believe in something that you feel that you can translate that into something meaningful, don't give up that easily. So there will be hundreds of hurdles that you get, including financing issues. I mean, you get to a stage where there is no money to even pay the next paycheck, right? But I think if you keep doing your job, and not that magic is going to happen, as long as you are working hard and putting your efforts, it's fascinating to see how things will come. I'll just give you an example. So we had no money to make the next paycheck. So we went to our accounting guy, a small boutique accounting firm who used to manage many of the Indian and Pakistani entrepreneurs' accounts. So he knew us very well, and he knew how well we were doing, but we were running out of money. And he also knew another company that was founded by 3 Pakistanis, and they had just then sold a company, and they were sitting on cash. We had no idea who they were. So he went and spoke to those guys saying that, hey, these are some amazing entrepreneurs. You guys are sitting on a lot of cash. Why don't you take a look at these entrepreneurs, and maybe there is some synergy for you to work together, and maybe you can also invest some money in this company. And that's how the marriage actually started, right? Could you have written this in a business plan? No way. But putting that effort to do what you want is the most important. That's where the persistence is very important. So when the guys came, then it's our job to convince them as to why they should seriously look at putting some money into the company. And believe it or not, they ended up giving us about $250,000, which was a lot of money at that time. And I mean, they made a good outcome out of that, but that's not the point. They helped us at the right time, at the most crucial time where we couldn't make the next paycheck. And in California, if you cannot make the paycheck, you have to shut the company down. Yeah, and that means no employee will be on the payroll. They can voluntarily come and work, but legally, they cannot be on your payroll.
That's quite a.
That's a pretty risky thing.
I think I've seen enough SMEs in India which requests the employees that, okay, fine, next month the salary will come 15 days late, or we'll pay you after. But I mean, you clearly didn't have that headroom also. I think one of the things which we agreed with Jagadeesh is that we will open up the floor for questions. So right now, if anyone has a question, I know there's a lady called Geeta who had a question. So if she wants, she can volunteer now, or anyone else.
The best way that I have learned is to get up early. So when you get up early, like typically for me, I get up around 4:30, 4:45, and I do some spiritual chanting that I learn, and then I do my yoga, and then I go for tennis. So when I come back from tennis, which is somewhere around, let's say, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m., I would have already finished 3 activities. Right? And that just gives me tremendous amount of energy for the rest of the day as to whatever I want to do, and helps me to focus. And the other thing that I've also done is balancing out my apart from the personal life, my philanthropic activities, which is very important to me, and my professional aspect of it. So what I have done is, apart from the personal family time that I spend, 60% of my time I spend on capitalistic opportunities, which is right now investing in next generation of entrepreneurs and all the professional related activities. 40% of my time I spend on non-profit and philanthropic activities. So it helps me to, number one, be grounded. Number two, to really understand the realities of the world, the realities of life. And it also gives me a different purpose. Like, as I work with these entrepreneurs and these entrepreneurs become successful, I slowly start pulling them into supporting these nonprofit causes. And for most of those guys, they would have never experienced in the nonprofit area at all, mainly because there is a trust factor. That is the biggest issue for supporting nonprofits. So what I bring to the table is, if I am actively involved in a nonprofit organization where I speak passionately about it, and I've also visited every one of these sites, then I can narrate these stories to these people. And if I'm involved, their confidence level in getting involved with the nonprofit actually increases. So this is what I've done over the last 7-8 years or so. Many of the companies that I've associated with, I slowly go back to these entrepreneurs who have created wealth for themselves and for investors, go back to them and say, hey, why don't you take a look at this nonprofit, right? You have made significant amount of money, and here is an opportunity for you to make a difference to a young kid or to the society in some form or the other. So that is what has happened to bring that balance in our own life. And my wife, obviously, she's a big supporter of these nonprofit organizations. And in fact, she runs what is called as a Sevathon, which does all these, half marathon, and yogathon, and those kind of things. And typically that brings about 3,000 to 4,000 people and about 125 or so different nonprofit organizations, right? Most of them are India-centric, but there are many even US-centric nonprofit organizations also that participate in this marathon, this Sevathon thing, and they end up raising hundreds and thousands of dollars during the process. So it kind of gives us a purpose in life, it's some sort of a joy, and the impact that you see when these children are benefiting from the work that we are doing. And it just feels very, very good.
Thanks for that. And I think one of the things which you raising the hand. Okay.
Not an issue. Silicon Valley Quad has been has made names across the globe, and you and your partners, Kanwal Reiki and Raju and other people from the Quad have invested quite a lot in companies incorporated in the US. Okay. Primarily, have you also invested in companies in India? And what is your investment thesis for companies in India?
So what's the question?
Do you invest in Indian companies? And if you do, what's the thesis? What type of companies do you invest in India?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Good.
Did I get the question right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I have invested in percentage-wise. It's a very small percentage, mainly because what I have realized is, the way my investment thesis work is I like to spend more time with the companies that I've invested in. So I'm not one of these guys where I write a check and I walk away from it. That's not my style. So I only do few companies, and the companies that I do, I tend to spend as much time as possible to create a bigger value for the entrepreneur. Because of all the experience that I have, if I can help more entrepreneurs to succeed, right? So I have this thesis. The thesis is that if an investor invests in about, let's say, 20 companies, right? This is after doing all the due diligence, all of that. If you invest in 20 companies, typically you will have about 2 blockbusters. So they're like an IPO or a big return, greater than a 10x kind of a return. And then another 5 to 7 companies will give you anywhere from 3x to 5x or 3x to 7x return. Meaning, if I put $1, I'll get anywhere from $3 to $7, which is mostly acquisitions, right? And another 4 or 5 will probably give back your dollar on a dollar. And the remaining 8 to 10 will give you anywhere from 0 to 50 cents. Okay, so that means the number of companies that die, despite the fact that it's a Sequoia Capital or it's a Mayfield or a Kleiner Perkins or any of those guys, even with those guys, this is what the classic ratio is. And you never hear about failures, never hear about failures, right? You only hear about people or VCs touting about their successes. Go to any website. You go to any website, but you go to KAAJ Ventures, I actually talk about development companies. So companies that we sort of lost money, right? Because that's how the learning actually happens. So my thesis is that if I spend more time with these companies, then I feel there is a higher chance of these companies to succeed. Mainly because the mistakes that we made or the mistakes that I have learned, if I can share that with these companies, these founders, then let them not make the same mistake. Let them go make a different mistake. And that happens, by the way, right? You cannot build a company without making mistakes. You have to make mistakes. So my thesis is that the ratio of number of companies that take some sort of an exit, will be higher. In fact, that's why I tell entrepreneurs, when I tell this ratio, and I tell them, hey, do you want to be in the 10 that fail, or do you want to be in the 8 or 9 that has a decent exit? Because for a VC, you are a mutual fund, right? If I get this 2 blockbusters and 4 or 5 good returns and 3 or 4 giving my money back, I can easily return 4x on my investment. Easy. So that means for me, it's a mutual fund. But for you as an entrepreneur, you don't know, it's your life. You spend 4, 5, 6 years. You don't want it to be a mutual fund. So So that's the point I make to all the entrepreneurs. Work hard. Let's create some great company out of this, right? I mean, ultimately, if the market doesn't converge, if some disaster happens, right, which are all out of your control, then it's okay. But the worst thing a company can fail is if the company fails because of your own execution mistakes. That should not happen. So coming back to your point, with that in mind, I do very few companies in India. So at any point of time, I have no more than 2 or 3 companies. So like I did the seed investment for NetMagic. I was pretty intimately involved. And then I've done a company called Futura, which is a data analytics company, which just recently got acquired by Accenture. I was one of the early seed investors in that company. And I'm involved with another company called Level Networks, which is a networking company based out of Bangalore. So these are the 3 or 4 companies that I've been involved because I want to spend more time, and I cannot do that sitting in the US. So that's what it is. So mostly I do B2B companies, software, and infrastructure companies. That's all I focus on. I never do consumer-centric companies. So my thesis on the consumer-centric is whatever I like, right, those companies will all fail. Whatever I don't like, those are the companies that do well. So that means I am completely out of touch with the consumer companies. So that's why I don't even touch the consumer companies. Sorry for the long answer. Yeah. First Indian to build?
The unicorn.
Oh, unicorn?
Yeah, I just one of the
First Indian to build unicorn. Possible. Yeah, it may be possible. You're right. I didn't think of that. Yeah, we were the first ones to have a multi-billion-dollar valuation. You're right. In the company. Yeah.
You've been in software for a long time. Why are you confining your investment to only software and infrastructure? Now that you are a VC, you should spread your portfolio broader.
Like
for example, no, no. There are some. If there is a Mysore-based startup which is into deep tech, but not essentially in software or infrastructure, would you be interested? And if so, what would be in top 3 clinching criteria that will make you invest?
Absolutely, good point. Very good point. So let me tell you what actually triggers my interest. When an entrepreneur presents a case to me, right, or a company to me, I need to be attracted to the problem they're solving. Because I told you, right, I need to add value. If I don't add value, I don't want to be involved with the company. So if I can add value, and if I get excited about the entrepreneur and the problem the entrepreneur is solving, and I'll tell you why the entrepreneur is equally important. And the second thing is, as the entrepreneur explains the problem and the solution, I should be able to compute in my mind that this is a fairly large opportunity. If it is not, it just doesn't make sense. If it is a very small market, niche market, it just doesn't make sense at all. So the reason why I focus on the entrepreneur is changes are imminent because you make a hypothesis and you start a company and you bring the company to some level. There is a competition that you didn't even know announces the product 6 months before you. And they suddenly become leaders in the market. So what do you do? So the entrepreneur should be able to figure out how he or she can navigate to create a differential in the market compared to that competition, right? Because leadership position is extremely important, extremely important. So I'll give you an anecdote about this company called Cohesity. So this Cohesity, I don't know how many of you have heard of Cohesity. Cohesity is started by the founder, one of the founders of Nutanix. It's one of the hottest companies in the Bay Area right now, which is a simple solution of a data backup. Okay? But data backup is an old school concept. It's a very old school concept. So what he brought to the table is this whole hyper-convergence of server, storage, networking, all on the same server. And you do the data backup. And he is so smart that because he was the author of Google File System, right? He was one of the very first authors of Google File System. So what he did was he brought the file system on top of the backup. And a lot of times, right, this analytics, I'm sure a lot of people who do the analytics, what do you do with analytics? You take the data and then you run analytics program, AI, ML, whatever that is. Why do you need to, and these things are not real-time sensitive. They're not real-time sensitive. They can be processed during nighttime on a slow processor. It doesn't matter at all. So he provided this whole file system on top of this backup storage, which allowed all these analytics companies to run their AI ML on the data backup itself. So his competition was floored. They had no answer. So his competition actually announced 6 months before him. But he came back with this, which again put him back in the leadership. So that's where you bet on the entrepreneur. So that's why it's very important as to what the vision of the entrepreneur is. So that needs to be articulated during your pitch to an investor, especially an investor who is knowledgeable, in this space, right? So it's not just about you walk into a VC and you expect a VC to write a check. Nobody will write a check. So you walk into a VC, your goal is, how can I get the next meeting? That's all it is. It's as simple as that. Just have that expectation that when I'm walking to a VC, my job is to get the next meeting. That's it. So if there is an entrepreneur, just for the fun of it, I cannot do it. Deep science and tech and all that, right? So these things have to really translate into market, into somebody who's going to buy those products. Yeah. Because we are not Department of Science and Technology to give 25 lakh grant, and that's not the way how it works.
So we see that Indian origin people going into the Silicon Valley are making it big. What are the structural gaps or shortcomings in India in creating exactly the same kind of return on? I mean, it's the same people who would have been doing it and go there and make it very big.
I'll tell you exactly what the gap is. And in fact, I brought it up. The biggest gap is when a product is produced in India, the early adoption for those products is missing. That is the biggest gap. In fact, at one point of time, maybe about 6 years ago or so, 5 or 6 years ago, a delegation of Indian CEOs came to Silicon Valley. These are all $200 million to $500 million revenue. So all the CEOs, they all came to TiE Silicon Valley, and everybody was given an opportunity to introduce themselves, and everybody is like, we want to support, I think Modi had just then started this Startup India campaign. We want to support the startup. So when my turn came, I asked these guys a single question. How many of you have thought of adapting a startup company product? Right? Do you have an R&D resource that is allocated? If a startup company comes and pitches to you, do you have an ability to even talk to these guys, to give them input? So in the US, what happens is, right from the time when the company is formed, the founder, the product founder, is constantly in conversation with potential customers, who is influencing the product as well, right? I share my idea, customer gets excited about the idea, and customer starts to give feedback on how this should fit into the overall ecosystem. You don't want to go blind by building a product, taking it to the market, and in the ecosystem you just fall apart. It just cannot work that way. So that whole link between the startup to the industry to these early adoption, until and unless that happens, it will be very hard for startup companies to thrive and succeed. Yeah, because I mean, I went through this when I was building NetScaler, my second company. We had like several places, companies that were testing our product. And one of them happens to be SEBI. So the SEBI guys, they had understood our product. What is the value we bring to the table, which is make the website much faster. We save a lot of money on the communication bandwidth, right? And we balance the load across multiple servers in a very reliable way. Everything they had understood. And the guys were like raving about, this is the solution we need. This is what we need. My CEO is like calling me up every day and complaining about how slow our website is. Take our product. We solve this problem for you. So it takes it, evaluates, everything goes well, and he doesn't want to pay. I said, I cannot give you a product. There is I can give you a discount. I can understand. If you can be a reference customer for me, maybe I'll give you some good discount. But I cannot give you a product free. Oh, I'm SEBI, you have to give me the product free. I said, I cannot give you the product free. So we walked out of it. So things like this, right, the attitude of seeing a value and encouraging an entrepreneur, not for the sake of encouraging, because you are seeing the value, you are saving money, and you're seeing the benefit by the product. So that, in my opinion, I don't know, there are many entrepreneurs here who sell to Indian companies. Perhaps maybe things have changed in the last several years, but I would love to get a different perspective. You guys, you've been selling to the Indian customers, right? So what is the status? Am I 10% accurate or 50% accurate or 90% accurate?
You are on track, still the same.
Huh?
You are on track, still the same.
SEBI has changed. I see. SEBI has changed. What about other customers? It's a tough battle. By the way, this is Pramod and Srinidhi. They're entrepreneurs from Bangalore. I just invited them to attend this session, also to network. These guys are building some amazing networking telecommunication product that helps assess the performance challenges that all of us face when we are using the internet. So they have the intelligence to detect that stuff. So go ahead. So they sell to all the carriers.
Yeah, the price is always seen. Not only in India, it is in the Southeast Asian countries. You see, this price is very sensitive, and in these countries, yeah, it is in the genes. So you have to struggle through that phase of adaptation, and then once you see them adopted, then you would have a better picture there. Moreover, I also see that the products in India will be successful when they are really successful outside India. Once we see someone buying, then you would see people buying more. We were able to actually break that jinx to an extent, but it was a tough battle. In our segment, at least, we hold like 15% of the market share in India, in the Indian broadband segment. But it was really a tough 2-3 years of battle to reach there. I completely agree with your observations. I see that it is in the same state. The struggle continues.
Have you sold to Reliance?
It is much easier for us to sell it in US and UK.
Yes.
And I can acquire the customer faster, decisions get made faster, money comes in faster. Everything is faster. So almost discouraged to go and acquire Indian customers. So I was thinking that structural deficiency that makes us unable to compete.
It's the mindset of the buyer to work with a startup company. And the problem that you're solving is something that offers a big value. So it's okay for me to buy from a startup company, right? Rather than waiting for a big company to provide that. So there is this whole structure about how do you go after early adapters. I mean, these are the kind of things I teach in my class. Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for coming down to Mysore and sharing your thoughts. It's really inspiring. So you did mention about the failures are not mentioned in the website. So, and also you are not talked about any failures. So we are interested in listening some of your failure stories as well to get inspired. And also, I know we are already in recession, and we'd like to know during recession how the execution should be taken care, because you mentioned as well most of the companies fails due to execution, not just the sales or marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell you at a high level the failures that I have seen personally myself. So one is when there is a challenge with the founding team of stop listening, and with the little success that they see, right, suddenly the arrogance kicks in, and then stop listening and start making some irrational decisions. So like one of the companies, without listening to the advisors and to the board, went on to go get some crazy loans, crazy debt. And this is like, I don't know how many of you remember when this Satyam, when the founder CEO actually disclosed, he said, beautifully he actually said, he said, you know, this is like sitting on a running tiger, right? Thinking that I will get away from it within a quarter or 2 quarters. But then it turns out it never happens. So the tiger keeps on running, and it's a matter of time as to when you're going to fall as a victim. So a lot of times these entrepreneurs, they think this is a very short term, this financial is a very short term thing, and end up making some crazy bad decisions in taking the debt. And the debt is what will come to haunt these companies, right? So that's a classic execution issues. I mean, I had this one company which is almost doing $13 million in revenues. Fantastic product. And this guy used to work for us. And the guy just changed because of some success that he had, right? The guy just changed and went and made some irrational decisions. And once you take this crazy loan, then you have to pay the interest for that. And market is not going to recover fast enough to make those payments. And the company ended up going bankrupt. In a matter of 3 to 4 months after that, the company ended up going back. So the other reason companies fail is you start with a hypothesis and you make some assumptions of how the market is going to evolve. And as the market evolves, then there are other dynamics. So like in this particular case, there was a solution that we were offering to the enterprise, which Amazon, AWS, started to offer a bare minimum at no cost. So our value got completely diminished. And we just couldn't raise the money at that point of time because there was a short window of opportunity that we had, and we did not execute properly at that time. And when we missed that, then AWS pretty much came and took over. So that's partially it's an execution issue, but partially it is also a market-driven issue. So when a company fails for such reasons, it's okay. It's okay because the entrepreneur gave 200% of everything that he or she has to get the company to that level. usually that's what I've seen. These are the two reasons as to why companies typically fail. Market not converging, and either your product is not a fit in the market and you cannot raise any more money. The second one is making these irrational decisions and end up shutting down the company.
Thanks for clarifying that. I think important is that loan is not so important. Loan is not the deciding factor. It's the market and because I do advise people, entrepreneurs.
But crazy debts.
Exactly. You should not always run after equity investors because it's not. I mean, entrepreneurs are always saying, where can I get a venture capitalist? Or there are quite a few programs run by the government, both in US as well as India, which do offer soft loans. There are a number of entities which offer loan products at an early stage, which can be used by entrepreneurs to actually help bootstrap their journey. But I think the crazy part is the more important part when you go and agree to unequal terms, whether it's from an equity investor or from debt investor.
Correct. By the way, there are enough tools that are available today called the safe notes. I'm sure everybody is aware of it, right? There are 4 different types of safe notes. So you can raise the money by not immediately giving the equity, but give this loan and give us a safe note, which will eventually get converted. And it protects the investor both on the top line as well as on the bottom line. So there are ways of actually doing it today. So there are lots of these good tools that you should take advantage. Sorry, somebody.
Good evening, sir. When you weren't able to provide the paychecks, it was by chance that you got the aid from those entrepreneurs. What if you didn't get the aid at the appropriate time? What would have been your preventive measures to that?
So just like anything else, that's not the only avenue that we are trying. We are trying 10 different things. This is where that persistence, resilience is important, right? So every day, apart from running the business, we are also making 10 different phone calls to personal friends, to business colleagues, and other kinds of people, whoever who takes pity on us and write a check. And I think somebody would have. The law of nature always works in such a way that when you are doing your job, the law of nature also will cooperate. I mean, I've seen this multiple times. Yeah, this happened to me in both my companies, and it's almost a miracle as to, if I explain that, people is, like this question that you're asking, right? So it was almost the same way even in my second company as well. Yeah, but we have to do our job. We cannot expect that miracle is going to happen, but if you do your job and you're continuously trying multiple angles, something will converge. Yes.
Good evening, sir. I am Aryan. I represent Slade Specialized College by Cresta School of Management, Science and Arts. So I am accompanied here by my friends. We all are in our early 20s and we want to become entrepreneurs and start our own companies. So what would be one such advice you would give us young minds in order to succeed?
Yeah. To become an entrepreneur. To become an entrepreneur? So the number one thing is to dream, right? You have to dream that, one day I want to start something of my own. And you start working towards that. And if you don't dream and you don't set the goal, it's kind of hard. Things will not converge. So during the process, it's also very important to keep trying different things because nothing happens magically. Nothing happens magically. You have to keep trying different things. As I was saying earlier, before I started Exodus, right, I had already tried 2 different things. And every one of these things, first of all, you should not think everything that you try is going to succeed, right? The way you should always think is, it's important to try because that trying will help you to learn from the mistakes. And it gives you more courage. It gives you more confidence to go and face the real world. Yeah. So you got to dream. And second is, if you can actually do a company in an area that you understand well, and you find what we call as the white space or a gap in the market, and you know how to solve that problem, okay, that's what you need to latch on to. Yeah. So that means I'm a believer that you have to build certain level of experience and expertise, and then you actually start to see where that white space is, right? So obviously, today you guys are so fortunate, everything is available on the internet. It's up to you as to how much time you want to spend reading about it. So let's say you get an idea. There are tons of ways to validate your idea. When we were doing, nothing of that existed. So it's a very different world today. And the third is, any idea that you start, you must assume there are at least 10 entrepreneurs working on the same idea. Must assume. Don't discount. Don't think that you are the only one who is doing it. Right? Assume that there are 10 other entrepreneurs who are working on a similar idea. So now, how do you become the best? This is where the execution comes into play. What is execution? Execution is the idea that you have, you translate that into a product. And you take the product and sell it to a customer who's going to pay for it. And why would a customer buy yours? Because you're going to show a value. If you think of anything that you buy in the market, if there is no value, why would you buy? Right? You take a TV, a smart TV, you end up paying 25% more for the smart TV. Why do you pay 25% more? There is a value that you see in that product that doesn't exist in a basic product. So that value is what you need to capture and articulate to the customers.
Good evening, sir. Today I've got two questions for you. So the first question is KAAJ Ventures...
Yeah, I can hear.
Is KAAJ Ventures...
No, hold the mic.
Okay.
I want others to hear also.
Is KAAJ Ventures a way to manage your profit? Is a step to manage your profit, or is it a step on your emotional beliefs to invest on startups? And the second question is, have you had any instances in your investing journey where you have rejected a company to invest in, and it has grown up like
done well.
A mountain?
And done well in the past. I mean,
yeah.
That you rejected and then it did well.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the reason for you rejecting it?
So is the KAAJ Ventures, is it, I guess the question is it more an emotional thing? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Is it a step of your emotional, businessman stuff, or is it to manage your profits?
So it's not an emotional thing. It is a investment arm that we have, right? So this KAAJ is actually, it's a name that we have come up with based on the first names in the family. It actually turned out pretty good. And KAAJ also means treasury, right? So it's KAAJ is the first names of all four of us in the family. And KAAJ also means it's a treasury. So it is not an emotional thing. I mean, in investment, you cannot be emotional at all. You just cannot be. You have to go with the intention that you will lose the whole money. Right? The day you write a check, you have to assume that you possibly can lose the whole money. So there is no emotional attachment. Then you start working as to how not to lose the money. Okay. So the second question is, have I not invested in a company that actually did well? Definitely, yes. Every investor would have gone through this. But the way to look at it is, you should always look at the companies that you have invested in. How do you make them successful? Rather than worrying about, oh, Facebook came and pitched to me and I could have invested at $20 billion valuation, and today it is an $800 billion valuation. I mean, what's the point? right? So there is a analysis that you do on that day when you make the decision. So there is a decision you took as to, I'm going to invest, I'm not going to invest. There is a reason as to why you make the decision. You just stick to the decision and move on. And the one that you invest, work hard and make that company successful. That's the logic most investors actually use. Yeah, because there's no point in regretting on an investment that you lost out. You see what I mean?
So just to sort of
actually, my point of question was the reason why you rejected that company, because so that we can, have an idea of pitching.
Why I rejected, I told you, right? If I didn't feel comfortable about the entrepreneur, if I didn't feel that the problem the entrepreneur is solving is not big enough from my perspective, if I feel that the entrepreneur doesn't have the entire knowledge of the ecosystem. So there is like 3 or 4 key parameters that you look at, which helps us to make the decision.
Just to come to you on this, 2 things. One, if people reject you, you can still become a unicorn. I think that's the belief you should have. Number 2, there's a very storied venture capital firm called B2B Ventures. They have an anti-portfolio on their website. Just go there, bvp.com, whatever anti-portfolio. You'll see why they rejected some of the great names in history and what they learned from that. Yeah. So, but in addition to what Jagadeesh said about why he rejected some of the companies, you will see that some of these are ultimately very short-sighted. They say, I'm tired of speaking to people. I'll just run away from here. And BVP missed Google because of that. Because they were so tired in a networking event, they didn't want to talk to anyone. They didn't speak to Google. They just ran away from there. So I think the reasons are multifold. But ultimately, it's your perseverance. And as he said, you have to keep knocking. Someone asked a question about what happens if that $250,000 didn't come from the Pakistani entrepreneur. There'll be others. But the point is, you have to keep knocking on the doors.
You have to keep trying.
Without that, it will never go. I think there's one question here. I don't know how we are doing on time. Last question, yeah.
Yeah, Jagadeesh, Rakesh here. You went in the early 70s to the US.
Early 80s.
Early 80s, okay. So in terms of the ecosystem everybody's been talking about, in your view, where are we? Bell curve, S curve, India, we all feel that we are doing very good. But still, there is a huge gap for people to come back to India. The reverse train is probably happening, but not the way that it would. So in your view, where are we headed? And how far would it take for us to reach those days where the Indian intelligentsia, which is already there, probably come back, Garvapsi?
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good question. This, I always get mesmerized by the way how Silicon Valley reinvents itself. So if you drive around, especially for someone like me, who've been there for the last 42 years, so many buildings have changed hands. So like I'll tell you, for example, in Mountain View, on this road called Shoreline Boulevard, I used to work for a company called Bridge Communications, which then got acquired by 3Com, right? It was actually one of the successful companies at that time. And that changed hands to some other company. And then from that some other company, it became LinkedIn. And from LinkedIn, now it has become Google. So same building. So I always now go back and say, what is interesting, the building is the same, and most likely even a lot of people who are working there are also same. It's just that the idea is different. So continuously this place reinvents itself. And who would have imagined a young company can throw a challenge and put a panic in a company like Google, which had a market cap of almost $2 trillion at that time, right? Everybody started to question even the existence of Google. You see what I mean? Just a young startup company has the ability to create that kind of a panic in an established company. So That's why this Intel CEO, Andy Grove, always used to say, only the paranoid survive. So you have to be paranoid about what is coming. Don't take anything for granted. So like, for example, when Bill Gates was asked to testify in the Congress because of this monopoly issue, just at that time, there was this browser company called Netscape that had started to do the disruption. And people are still trying to understand, right, what is the impact of a browser versus a dominant player like a Microsoft. But Bill Gates knew very well that as the world changes, everything will become a browser interface rather than a proprietary interface, which is what it has become now. So the result was he pulled out 2,000 engineers from some group that was doing nothing. He pulled 2,000 people, and in a matter of 6 to 8 months, he came up with the Explorer, Microsoft Explorer, which eventually it went on to become a dominant player. But Google answered that, and Google now has become the dominant player, right? Who would have expected? So at that time, when he testified in Congress, this is what he was explaining. He said, look, I may be a dominant player, but if I don't have an answer to this Netscape, I'll be nobody. In a matter of 1 year, 2 years, I'm going to completely lose my existence, right? So I think that is the power of that Silicon Valley, the innovation that happens, and areas like this AI and generative AI and innovation that's going on in biotechnologies, right? There's a lot of disruption that I think we will see in the next 5 to 10 years, which is going to be pretty fascinating. So the one thing that I'm a believer that despite the fact that everybody says this AI is going to take away jobs, I am a believer that any new technology that comes in will go through a version for a while where it will cause some impact on the jobs, but more and more people will get employed. The best example is computerization. I mean, those of us who come from 70s and 80s, we all know there used to be strikes that used to happen. Oh, computers are going to take away our jobs. But computers came, it showed its own value, it created a lot more jobs, right? You have all these bank ATMs and everything. It just made life a lot more easier, and it ended up creating a lot more jobs. So I think similar kind of things will happen even with this AI. We just need to have patience. We need to be adapted to changes. So change is always imminent. So if we don't accept the change, we are the losers. And that's what Silicon Valley is all about.
It's actually not a question, it's a comment. Sudhanvaji started with, where does Jagadeesh find so much of time? There is another aspect of Jagadeesh that he hasn't talked about, which is his social life. He's a very, very active member of KKNC, which is Kannada Koota of Northern California. That is one. And the second one is he's also a stage artist. I've seen him perform on stage in the Bay Area. So that's the other aspect of his life that he hasn't talked about in terms of where he spends his time.
Poor research on my end, sorry.
What's that?
Poor research from my end. I didn't.
No, that's okay. That's okay. No, he gave a glimpse by singing 2 lines, right? So at the beginning itself. I just want to make that comment. It's a wonderful program. Thank you very much, Jagadeesh.
Thanks, Jagadeesh. It's been
Thank you so much.
Extremely atypical fireside chat. I think he's engaged with the crowd so much better, so much more than I could ever have encouraged him to. But one final thing about you being one of the people who have been associated with TiE in the US for a long time. What lessons, what things can we take away as TiE members here as we sort of try to set up this ecosystem here and help the growth of Mysore as an entrepreneurial hub in times to come?
If there is one thing that I have to say, what you guys should adapt immediately, if you are already not doing, is start involving youngsters as quickly as possible. So have that continuity to bring youngsters into key roles so that they can start to provide, right, the gaps that whatever TiE has to do. So it has to be a constant evolution, and not involving the youngsters. What will happen is you become like a club, and when you become a club, youngsters will stop coming and stop interacting, and after some time you become irrelevant. So you don't want that to happen. So make sure that youngsters are given key roles in the organization on a continuous basis. And of course, you know, the seasoned ones have to monitor so that the youngsters don't make some silly mistakes. But you have to provide a good opportunity for youngsters to get actively involved.
So the seasoned one shouldn't be like corporates, they should be more like startups. They shouldn't make the decisions, they should be mentors to them.
Exactly.
Great, perfect, thanks. That's a great note to end. Thank you very much for your time and wonderful insights. We are privileged to have you and look forward to having you at some point of time again in the future. Thank you.
It so happened that both of us were in Sion in Bombay for some time. I mean, of course, different times. It was just 3 years when I left India. Yeah, very nice.
Such a great time. To add to what Mr. B.V. Jagadeesh said related to the opportunities to be given to the youngsters, sir, TiE Mysuru chapter is coming up with TiE University platform for the student members, where the students are going to be trained straight away from the ideation level to the pitch. So we have the mentors, we have the board members and charter members from TiE University, TiE Mysuru chapter, who are extending their support to mentor the students, take the sessions, and completely monitor them from their ideation stage to the pitch. This is a program which has been proposed and taken approval from the TiE Mysuru board members, and the chapter chairman, the chair for the TiE University Mysuru panel is Mr. Shiv Shankar sir is here. We are about to launch the program maybe in a couple of days. All the student members from various institutions will definitely be benefited out of this program. Now I request Mr. Sudhanva Dhananjaya sir, TiE Mysuru president, to hand over a memento to Mr. B.V. Jagadeesh sir as a token of gratitude from TiE Mysuru chapter. A huge round of applause for Mr. B.V. Jagadeesh for this wonderful session. I also request Anuradha madam to be onto the dais. Madam, please.
Madan is here. He wants to make a quick announcement. Madan, over to you.
Thank you, Sudhanva. Again, I thought I'll use this opportunity again. BV, how many ever times I listen to the story, there's always a new angle that comes out. So thank you for a delightful evening. I just wanted to, given the wonderful group that we have here, I just wanted to make two quick announcements. I know the TiE Mysuru chapter has reached out to all. As Sudhanva mentioned, TiE Mysuru, Bangalore, Hubli and Mangaluru, we are all getting up for a huge TiE Global Summit next year. As a run-up to that, TiE Global Summit is happening in Singapore next month, 15th to 17th. There's a fairly large Karnataka delegation that's going. We've booked 100 seats on a Singapore Airlines flight on the 14th. We have taken a fairly large pavilion at Singapore, and there's a Karnataka track that's happening. So those of you still sitting on the fence thinking, should I come to Singapore or not? Now is the time to jump and come to Singapore. We've got all the elements in place. Happy to share that the Government of Karnataka Department of IT is also a formal partner for the delegation. So the Minister, Mr. Kharge, Rajiv Gowda, the Vice Chairperson of the Karnataka State Institution for Transforming Karnataka, as well as the secretary. They're all a part of the delegation. So request all of you to quickly move and join us, the more the merrier, as well as all the young startups that are here. We are having about 25 startups display at Singapore. By the way, this is also happening in conjunction with the Singapore FinTech Festival, which is probably the largest FinTech festival in the world. Some 62,000 odd people expected to attend. So especially in the FinTech space, it's going to be a big opportunity for startups. So we are taking about 25 startups at a very nominal fee that we are just trying to defray the costs. So any startups that you know, as well as any one of you and the extended family that is here, in the next few days, please do decide to join. It's going to be a very enjoyable, massive networking opportunity for all of us to go there together and create some noise. That's one. Secondly, November 3rd, we are anyway doing the pre-BTS event here. Happy to share that we are all a part of the BTS startup organizing team, and we are planning a large TiE pavilion at BTS where we want to showcase about 50 startups, at least 25 to be beyond Bangalore. So again, an early shout out. Any worthy startup, especially the TiE University types and the young startups which want to gain visibility at BTS, keep your eyes open. We are trying to create a mentoring stall, investor pitching possibility, etc. So we want as many startups from TiE Mysuru to participate as possible. And of course, the work for TGS next year will start in earnest as we receive the baton at TGS Singapore. So lots of work to be done. Look forward to working with all of you, and a huge shout out to Sudhanva, Dr. Mahesh, and of course the entire team at TiE Mysuru for the journey so far, and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
I request Mr. Adas Ramesh, Associate Member, TiE Mysuru, to propose vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I think it was a wonderfully amazing session. Thank you, Mr. Jagadeesh, for keeping us and keeping it really relatable and real. I know I'm standing between dinner and whatever is there ahead as part of the Dasara holidays that we have here, but I would like to take just a few minutes to highlight certain points and certain words of wisdom that was shared today. For emerging entrepreneurs, keep dreaming, keep trying, and when you get something, validate it, be persistent, and be a master of execution. You cannot plan your growth, you just have to be resilient, and the dots hopefully connect along the way, thanks to the law of nature. And before you venture into entrepreneurship, be prudent and take your family along with you on your journey. Now, for startup seeking investments, if you are in the B2B segment, software, or the infrastructure segments, please pitch to him. But before you go, know that you're solving a problem that is really exciting. And you as an entrepreneur should be like a phoenix, ready to always rise, because everything might come falling down. For seasoned entrepreneurs, find ways to strike a balance between professional, philanthropic, and personal time. And for all of us here, get up early in the morning. Don't let arrogance kick in. Try to be grounded and be early adopters. Because while we praise and appreciate a lot of startups, we also have to purchase from them and pay them properly. And finally, let us all stand up and give him a standing ovation. We didn't for a second feel that he was someone from abroad coming and preaching us. Rather, he is someone who was trying to lift us all up to better and higher standards. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Mrs. Anuradha, for being here, for leading amazing campaigns and working towards the betterment of the society at large. You are also truly an inspiration. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Thanks to Mr. Mukund for moderating the session so phenomenally, and for being humble to accept that you did not research completely. It's a very bold thing to do. Thanks to Mr. Madan Padaki, the president of TiE Bangalore, and a lot of invitees who have come here today. It's amazing to see a full house. We're not bunking events on account of long holidays or weekends. So that's great to see, because the chairs kept getting added at the back. I'm sure you might not have noticed it, but it's This is the fullest this hall has ever been, sir. Yeah. Thanks to the TiE board, the charter members, the associate members, student members, and every one of you present here today. Thanks to Oyster Bay for the venue, for Infinity Events for always being a good supportive element in this, and for Team Inside Out for the marketing. And finally, thanks to Mr. Sudhanva Dhananjaya, the president of TiE Mysuru, and our ED, Mr. Mahesh, for enabling this wonderful session here today. Thanks to MC Mr. Kishan, and for all of you present here today. Happy Dasara. All of you have a great evening, and wish you all the best, and may Chamundeshwari bless us all. Thank you.
Mr. Shiv Shankar, CEO of SJCE STEP and chairperson of TiE University program, is here to interact with you people. So I request all the student members to have interaction with Mr. Shiv Shankar sir for about 10 to 15 minutes. This is purely related to the TiE University Nurture program for the Mysuru based students. So Shiv Shankar sir is here near the dais.